What is a drawing without dimensions? Well, it's just a bunch of lines, I guess. Dimensioning a drawing properly is essential. There are many tools in AutoCAD to help us annotate our drawings. Dimensioning is the process of adding measurement annotation to a drawing. Let's open up the dimension example drawing for this chapter. You can create dimensions for a variety of object types in many orientations. Linear dimensions can be horizontal, vertical, aligned, rotated, a baseline, or a continued or chained string of dimensions. Here we have several dimensions on this bracket. Dimensions can also be associative, non-associative, or exploded. Associative dimensions adjust to changes in the geometric objects that we measure. I recommend that you always use associated dimensions, especially if you're placing your dimensions in paper space, as is the example here. Dimension associativity defines the relationship between your objects and their dimensions. Now, there are three types of associativity between geometric objects and dimensions. Associative dimensions. These types of dimensions automatically adjust their locations and orientations and measurement values when the geometric object associated with them is modified. And dimensions in a layout may be associated to objects in model space. That's where the dim associate system variable is set to 2. We'll go over this later on. Non-associative dimensions. Non-associative dimensions do not change when the geometry changes that they're measuring. The dimension variable set for this is dim associate is set to 1. That's DIMASSOC when it's set to 1. Now, exploded dimensions. These types of dimensions contain a collection of separate objects rather than a single dimension object. The dim associate system variable is set to 0. The appearance is very easy to alter, but they are no longer controlled by a dimension style or by geometric object. They will not update automatically like associate dimensions will. Dimensions have several distinct elements. They have the text, they have dimension lines, that's the horizontal line here. They have arrowheads, which you can change to be many different shapes. They also have extension lines. Those are the vertical lines that you see here that come from the object they're dimensioning and extend up to the dimension line and arrowhead. All of these can be controlled, defined, and altered through a dim style or dimension style. And this can be done also through a properties manager. Let's make some basic dimensions. Let's go to the No Dim Paper Space tab. Go to the Annotate tab on the ribbon. Go to the Dimensions panel. Click on the arrow here from Dimension and click on Linear. Make sure your O snaps are turned on and that you have your endpoint O snap running. When you're set up that way, you'll be able to create some dimensions very quickly. I'll show you. I snap to here, and I have my dimension. If I select my align dimension, I can get dimensions at angles that give the true length value. If I go back to my linear dimension, this will create a dimension that is locked into horizontal or a vertical orientation. Those are your basic dimensions, the linear and the aligned. Now, an angular dimension will display the angle between two lines or objects. Radial dimensions will give you the radius or diameter of a circle or arc. Just select the object of the circular nature and then pick where you want it to go. That is the very basic use and application of dimensions. We're going to get into each part of it a little bit more in detail. Just as the display features of objects are controlled by layers, dimension styles control the display features of dimensions. Dim styles also control various dimension settings. Now, there are several hundred settings, and that's not an exaggeration, of systems variables for dimensions alone, not to mention the other systems variables for regular AutoCAD. Styles will help you control and manage them. So let's open up the dimension example file. Browse to this chapter's folder, go to the dimension example.dwg file, and open it up. Now let's go to the Styles tab. Several dimensions here are using different styles, and it's easy to change the style of a dimension. So if we just browse into one of the dimensions and then select it and open up the Properties Manager. Press Control and 1 at the same time. And we come here to the Properties Manager. Gives us some general information, some miscellaneous, and lines and arrows, etc. But the one we want here is the dim style in the miscellaneous section. Right now this is set to tick. That is the name of the style. So if I select that box, and I get a list of the different types of styles that are in here. And as I hover over them, I get a preview of what the dimension will look like if I were to select that new dimension style. And it's very easy. Now, when drawing dimensions, you need to make sure that you have the proper dimension style active. You can come up to the Annotate tab in the ribbon, to the Dimensions panel, and you click on this little arrow here. This little button here goes to your Dimension Styles Manager. You click that, it'll open it up, and you can change all of your dimension styles right here. Find the one you want, click the Set Current button, and then click Close. A quicker and easier way, though, to do that is to come up here to this Dimension Styles pullout. Gives you a little bit of a preview. You can have a scroll bar if there are a lot of them. Find the one you want, and then click it. That one will be active. So when you make a dimension, that will be the style used, whatever's current. So it's pretty simple. And I mentioned the Styles Manager. You click here to get to it. This is where you make changes to your dimension style or where you create new dimension styles. So you can select a dimension style here on the left side. It gives you a preview here on the right. And then if you want to change it, you click on the Modify button. And there are multiple tabs for all of these settings. We're going to go over most of these, just the ones that you really absolutely have. The Lines tab controls the way your dimension lines are displayed. The symbols and arrows are here. Your text, any final fit options, and another main one here is your units. There are also alternate units and tolerances. We'll get into all of these later on and give you a good idea of how to create your own dimension style. In fact, we're even going to go through a project where you're going to set some of them up for you. In this section, we're going to take a look at some more advanced dimensioning tools. Now, let's open up a dimension example file. Browse to this chapter's folder and look for the dimensionexample.dwg file and open it up. Go to the Dimension tab. Now here we have several different dimensions already put in here. Now you can make changes to dimensions through the Properties panel. You can open that up by pressing the Control key and the number 1 key at the same time. Now, if you want to change the text value, double-click the text, and that will open it up in a text editor. You'll have what looks like your multi-line text editor contextual ribbon right up here. So you can get access to your justification, your fonts, your colors, bold, italicized, etc. You can even match properties inside the text editor. You can change your text style, or you can type things in. So let's say that we need to represent this not with the measurement, but with some actual words. So you just select that text object there and press the delete key or backspace. That will erase that. And then you can type in anything else. I'm just going to type in something simple. Side view. If you press enter, it carriages down to another line. So what you want to do is just click somewhere outside with your mouse. Just click somewhere outside of that text. And there is your text. You can override that quite easily. So double click the text, and this works just like a regular text editor. You can move with your arrows, you can delete, and if you want your measurement value back, you type in less than and then greater than, and it puts in the actual measurement for you. But you can do all sorts of things. You can type in text just like that. Now, if you select your text object and you can come to the Properties palette, you can change the color here, but remember, please don't ever change it to anything else but by layer. You can change what layer it's on if you need to. You can change the line type, all of your regular object selection type styles. Here you can change the different type of style. If we scroll down, we can override some of the other features here. Now, typically you're not going to want to override any arrows or anything like that, except for very special cases. If you need certain or specific arrowheads, you can do that, though I'd suggest by creating a style specifically for that purpose. But you can change some of these objects here. Just click on them, find the one you want, and it will make it into a dot or an arrow. Now you have an arrow 1 and an arrow 2, just like you'll have a dimension line 1 and dimension line 2, and so on and so forth. All the items that refer to number 1 are the very first one that you click. So when you create your dimension, wherever I click first will be, arrowhead 1, extension line number 1, and my second selection will be number 2. I'm going to delete this. So if I select my dimension again, and I want to turn off some of my dimension lines, like right here, select it and turn it off. That'll be this left side. Now your dimension line is the line, it's sort of horizontal. It goes from extension line to extension line. It's where the arrowheads go. I can turn them both off if I'd like. That way I have just the text and just the extension lines. It's a rare case that you would want something like that, but you can do it. Now your extension lines, you can turn off and on as well. Just select it and turn off and turn off. And I'm going to turn my dimension lines back on. Sometimes this is something you might want to do. Leave your dimension lines on, but turn off your extension lines. So you can see here, there are a lot of different things you can change. You can also grip edit a dimension. So if I select a dimension, you can see I have a couple of different grips here, and each one of them have different things about them, different traits. So if I select this point, this changes where the dimension is. So it's dimensioning to a different spot. So once you move it, then your value will change. So you can change that at any time. These grips here at the arrowheads will reposition it, up or down like that. And the grip on the text allows you to move it and put it in different locations. Now, if you raise it up or raise it down, of course, your extension lines and your dimension lines, they're going to follow it with you. So that's a great way to align these and use them the way you want to. There are a lot of other dimension tools on the ribbon. So go to the Annotate tab, and you can have a lot of different items right here. And there are even some more at the bottom here. Let's go over some of them. This puts a break in your dimension. You select the tool here, and then you follow the on-screen instructions. Select the dimension you want to add a break to, and then you select the dimension that goes through it, and it will automatically size that for you. So that's a nice little feature there. Another one you might want to use is the adjust space. This adjusts the space between your linear dimensions. So if I select the baseline and then select the one to change, right click, I can just auto, and it will automatically adjust it to a certain size. Now this is good if you want to have a lot of stacked dimensions that need to have the exact same spacing throughout the view. That'll keep your drawing looking real nice. Now this quick tool will draw dimensions very quickly, but you have to be in model space, and you have to be able to select. I'm going to select several different items here, and then it does this. Of course, it's not to the proper scale. I don't have this set up correctly, but you can see it puts all of the dimensions relative to that view in there right away, real quickly. You don't have a lot of control over it, so it's not something that I use a lot, but in some mechanical drawings, it might help you to get a string of dimensions in there very quickly. This will add inspection symbols to your dimension. This will update your dimensions to a current style. Sometimes the dimensions don't update right away if you've changed the style. If you click this tool, then select the dimension object that you want to update, then press enter, it will sort of recalibrate that dimension to look like the style that it's assigned to. So that's a quick way to fix your dimensions if they get messed up. This will reassociate dimensions that come off of the wrong points. This is the continue option. I use it often. You have two different types of continues. So if I go to this dimension style here, I'm going to erase these so they're out of our way. But if I start a dimension here and I click on the continue, it's going to pick up right where I left off. So I can continue dimensioning. As you see here, it goes on and on. Now you can do the linear or you can do stacked and baseline, and it remembers the last one you used. However, if you don't want to use that one, once you start the command, type in the letter S, press enter, and then select the baseline you want to start with. And there you go. And they both work the same way. Now there are a few other things in here I really want to show you. I want to show you the jog line. So let's say you want to create a dimension and you want to show a jog in it. Maybe it's an estimated dimension that you're showing off like an extension. Sometimes we need to put a little jog in our dimension line. It's okay. So you take your dimension, you start the dimension jog button, just click on it, select your dimension, and then press return. And that will put your jog right in here. And then you can just click on it and you can drag it left or right, wherever you want to go to. Now, if you want to remove a jog, start the command again, type in R for remove, press return, select the dimension, and it goes away. So that's a nice little thing that you can do. Also, if you select a dimension and you have your right-click shortcut menus on, you can get to some different things here like dimension style. You can change the dimension style. Or if you have changed the dimension settings some way and you want that to be a brand new style, you can click here to save as a new style. You can remove style overrides. You can change the precision of your dimension so that it can go to more or less decimal places. So there are a few things that you can get to with a select and right click. Dimensions in AutoCAD can be very complicated because they have so many different options to them. Just remember to keep it simple and make sure your dimension styles fit your needs. I want to look at a few key systems, variables, and methods of dimensioning. The settings I'm talking about is the dim associates, or DIM-ASSOC. Let's open up an example file. Let's look at the dimension example drawing file. Keep in mind that there are 3 settings for the dim associates setting for this variable. 0, 1, and 2. So if I type this in, DIMASSOC, that's the command. Press enter. The default value that you're going to want to use almost 99% of the time is 2, because it just makes everything work. There's also a setting of 0 and 1. 0 turns off the dim associates setting. This means that the dimensions are not associated to anything. In fact, they won't even be dimension objects. So right now with it set to 2, if I draw a dimension here, any type of dimension, and then I go to select it, you see it's a dimension object. If I open up my properties palette and I select it, it tells me it's a rotated dimension. That's the type of dimension it is. Now, if I go to my dim associates value and I turn it to 0, of course, this dimension will stay the same. It was already drawn in. But if I create a new dimension, I get a lot more options. This is the absolutely very, very old setting for dimensions that we used to use before associated dimensions. But it's still here. It's a legacy command. And when you go to use it, it asks for a lot more information, like the value. Once you type it in, you can see here, this is not a dimension. This is just a series of lines. It's also a text object. And we have an arrowhead here that is really just a solid. So I can't easily change or edit like I can here. You don't want to use this unless there's something absolutely strange about your dimension that you can't get to work right. So that's what that setting does. Now, if you explode a dimension, that's kind of the same result. It just turns it into a bunch of lines, text, and solids. Now, there's a difference between setting 1 and setting 2. And a lot of times you'll find older files set up this way. That will be set to number 1. Now, number 1 turns them back into a dimension object. So now when I create this dimension, I select it, it's a dimension object. Same way as if I select the old one. I'm going to erase these to get this out of the way. But this is a setting that you need to use to manually set your scale. As you can see here, this dimension is 1.63 units. If I set my dim associates setting to 2, and I will dimension the exact same spot, you'll see here I'm getting a different value. The dimension setting for 2 associates your dimension insert points to the object in model space that you pick while you're dimensioning in paper space. Setting 1 doesn't do that. It takes the absolute true length of what you're actually measuring in whatever space you're in, be it model or paper space. So if I double click inside this viewport to activate it, and I change my dim associate setting to 1, and I dimension this. First of all, my dimension is not to scale, so it's not showing up right, but you'll see here as I zoom in, I get the proper length, 65 feet. Same as in here. Setting 2 allows you to work in paper space. It measures the true distance involved, not the viewport scaling. That means that you can make one dimension style regardless of the scales used. So if I'm using the dim associate setting of 1, in order for this to scale properly, I have to go into my style manager and I have to set up the scale of my drawing right here. So if I change this, let's say to a scale factor of 10, set that one current, and I'd make a dimension here. It scales up the value that it's measuring by a factor of 10. So you can see here, this is 1:1, this is 1:10, and this is a true value based on the viewport scale. This is easier. Setting 2 is easier because if I have multiple viewports at different scales, which you will often do, especially on architectural drawings or mechanical drawings, then I don't have to set that up. I can just go with it. Also, the setting of 2 works everywhere. It works in paper space, it works in model space. Some people prefer to dimension in model space, some people prefer to dimension in paper space, and sometimes you may have a need to do both. I don't suggest that, but sometimes that happens. Setting it to 2 means there's less work for you to do. The settings of 0 and 1 are legacy settings that are still there because Autodesk never gets rid of old commands or systems variables. They kind of bury them deep in there, but they keep them in, and that's the legacy thing that you might come across from time to time, but just set it to 2 and everything will work fine. So if you get a drawing from somebody and it's not measuring properly when you do your dimensions, check that setting. Also check the setting in the dimension styles for the scale factor, see if that's doing something crazy, and you'll have to keep an eye on that if it's not looking right. Now I want to show you multileaders. There used to be 2 commands in AutoCAD called leaders and multileaders. The multileaders command has since replaced the leaders command, so we're not even going to look at it. You wouldn't even ever need to use leaders anymore. Multileaders are far superior, so I'm not even going to cover them. We're just going to talk about multileaders. Let's open up the annotation drawing file. Now to draw a multileader, you go to the annotation tab on the ribbon, go to multileader and click it. Select the point for your arrowhead, drag out the tail, and then type in text. Click somewhere and there's your multileader. It's that simple. You can also type in MLD for multileader. Once you're finished, don't press enter. That'll just give you a second line. Just click with your left click of your mouse and it will go in. Now to edit this text, just double click it. Select your text that you want just like you would in a regular text editor and change it. If I double click it, I also get this little arrow thing here, and that will wrap everything around so you can see it better. I can also grip edit it. If I select it and get these boxes, I can move those automatically by itself. If I grab this guy right here, I can stretch it, lengthen the landing, or add another leader to it. But if I just click it, this is a stretch or a move, so it moves that position. This will just change the location of the arrowhead. This little arrow here will make this longer or shorter. Quite simple. If you right click on it, you also get some options. You can add a leader or remove a leader. Now these are multi-leaders, so you can add multiple leaders to the same object. When you select it, of course you can move it and the tails will follow accordingly. So that's kind of an idea of what you get here. So if I select it, I can right click and select remove leader, and I just pick the leaders that I want to get rid of. And the rest will remain. Now if I have multiple leaders and I want to align them, I can use a lot of these different tools right here. I can select here to align, and I pick my multiple leaders, press return. Now I pick my leader I want them to all line up with, and I can kind of move my cursor around and that will line them all up. which is really nice. Now this option right here is to collect. This gets all of your multileaders so that they're all kind of together. Now multileaders have something similar to text and dimensions in that they have a style. If I click on this button here, I can get to my different styles that I have set up. And to create a new one, just click on the new button, give it a name. I'm just going to call this circle. Click continue, and here are your settings. You have 3 tabs. The first one is called leader format. This sets up the leader. I can change whatever it is I want on here, make it a dot. I can change it from a straight line to a spline, or I can make it to be none even. Let's make this one a spline. You can change the size, the break size, etc. Now the leader structure itself, I can have multiple different points for the leader itself. I can annotate the scale of it. I can give a first or second angle to it, all that I want to lock those in. The content is really cool because here is where you get very powerful with the leader styles. Right now it's set to a default M-text. I can also go to a block, and it has several blocks in here. I'm going to make this one a circle tag. If you have a block yourself, you can get one of those. But you also have the detail tag that has a top and bottom text to it. You have a slot, a circle, a box, hexagon, or a triangle. Click OK. We're going to set this one current. Click close. Now when I draw my multileaders, this is kind of what they look like. And then it gives you this field here. Type in the number 1, click OK. And there's a nice little call out. I'm going to draw in another one. I'm going to call it number 2 and click OK. Now here is where the collect comes in handy. If I use this collect option, you can see here in the tooltip preview, if I select it, then I pick my 2 leaders, press enter. It gives me a little preview of what it looks like, and there we go. So I can kind of combine them together because I want these 2 notes to show up on my drawing. Now if I select it, I get these grip edits, and you can see here what it's doing is that it kind of separates it, and you got to be careful with that. So what the real power in multileaders is their styles. They're very easy to use, to edit, and to create styles for different types of leaders that you need. Another main form of annotation in AutoCAD is text. Text is used to label objects in notes, title blocks, and in a lot of other instances. There are 2 main forms of text, single-line text and multi-line text. Multi-line text has mostly replaced single-line text, but single-line text does have a few uses. I want to go over it with you very quickly. So let's open up a brand new blank template file. So click on the templates button, and just the acad.dwt will be fine. So to create single-line text, you type in dtext. You pick your start point. You tell it how tall you want your text to be, and then your rotation angle. And then you just start typing in your text. When you're finished, press enter. Now it looks like you're still in the same object and that you're starting a second line, but you really aren't. This puts a new text object directly underneath and perfectly aligned with your first. Now to finish out of here, just click outside somewhere else. Now you can see I'm still in the command, and I can start putting text anywhere that I want. So clicking escape will get you out of your text, but you have to press enter first or it will cancel, just like it did there for me. So you can see here, this is just one object. It has a grip edit. If I click on it, I can move the text around. If I want to edit the text, double click on it, and that will give me access to the text. So you can edit your text just like you would anywhere else. Click outside of it when you are finished. Now text can be rotated, moved, copied, just like any other object. Now keep in mind also that you can edit text through the properties palette. Just press Ctrl and 1 at the same time, select your text, and you have your regular general options. So if you just scroll down here, click the sidebar, and then scroll it down, you can get to a lot of different text options. If you select here, you can change the text. You can change the text style. You can make it annotative or not. You can change the text justification. You can justify it left, right, center, make it aligned, set in the middle. You can also fit it between 2 points. which is really nice. Now that's one thing that single line text will do that multi-line text will not. You cannot stretch it like this and rotate it and make it fit between 2 points. That is one use of single line text that you will definitely want to use it for. You won't always notice the justification in single line text. If I select here, I can tell this is left justified because there's only one grip there. But if I change my justification to center, you can see it moved over there. If I grab this, I can switch it or grip edit it, move it around in both ways. If I switch it to right justification, it goes right there as well. It gives you another point. Now I can draw a line to text through the insert point, and that insert point comes from the justification. Now over here on the left, I need to go to a node. All single text objects have a node, and that's always on the left bottom corner. Keep that in mind. And that's why you see 2 grips all the time. Now, text fonts are controlled by text styles. Text styles work just like dimension and multi-leader styles do. We're going to take a closer look at those because they're a little bit more in depth. But this is a quick overview of single line text. Multi-line text, or M-text as we often refer to it, can produce notes, callouts, descriptions, or most any other form of annotation. To start, just type in M-text, the letter M, and then the word text. Pick your first point. Your second pick will determine the size of a window. This window will determine where your text will go. As you automatically type, it fills in to the right, and then when it gets to the edge of this box, the text will automatically wrap to the bottom left-hand side. So, once you've typed in everything that you want, just click somewhere outside of that text object. And this is multi-line text. It's one object. I can grip edit it. By doing that, it allows me to move. These arrows will change the size of the box, height-wise and width-wise. And I can use long notes for this quite easily. Most characteristics of your text object are controlled by the text style, which sets the default font and other options such as line spacing, justification, and color. Now, you can use the current text style, or you can always select a new one. Now, within the multi-line text object, you can override the current text style by applying formatting such as underlining, boldface, and different fonts to individual characters. To edit your text, just double-click it. This will bring up a contextual ribbon called the Text Editor ribbon. And you can see here you have a lot of different options to you that look very much like a text editor or a word processing program. You have Find and Replace. You can have different dictionaries. It has a spell check for you. You can insert fields, special symbols. You can even change these into columns if you'd like. You can do it manually or automatically. This is really handy for large notes. You can change your justification right here. You have paragraph settings that you can access, your line spacing. You have bulleting, numbered or lettered. You have different fonts that you can get to. You can change the color. And you have your different formatting here, bold, italics, strike through, underline, etc. Now, another nice thing that you have here is match properties. So if you have a text object that's already in your file, you can click on the match properties, and then this will just copy those settings. You can change your text height right here. To make these changes inside the text editor to your text, you have to select the text. Just left click and drag over the text, and now you can make changes to it. And when you're finished, just click outside of the text editor. If you select your text and open up your properties palette, you can get to a lot of these same options right here. Your contents, your style, annotation, justification, your direction, text height, rotation, etc. Now, your line space options control the amount of space between the lines of text. The width defines the width of the bounding box, controls where the text wraps. Now, you can also insert a background. If I select it, I go to background mask. Right now it's set to no. Click on this box here. I can say yes. Type in my border offset. And if you just type in 1.0, this is a percentage. 1 will cover just where the text is. A little bit more than 1 will be, of course, larger than the text. Anything less than 1 will be, smaller than the text. You click here to select a color, click OK, and that puts a background mask inside the text wherever your bounding box is at. And here you can see my 2 columns. So that's a real quick overview of multi-line text. It's very powerful, very word processor-like, and you can do a lot with it. Now, there are many different ways to use text, especially multi-line text. The method you will use will depend on your needs. Styles will control your font type. Let them. M-text objects can be edited within the text editor, but keep in mind that once you do, you lose some editing abilities. Let's just start with a blank file. Go to a template and use the acad.dwt template file. Let's look at text styles. You can get to text on the ribbon from the Home tab right here. If you click on text, click on the arrow, you can have single line text or multi-line text. This will start your text, just like you normally would. You can also go to the Annotate tab on the ribbon, and you can get to the same features here. Now this button here will select your text style and make it current. It works just like a dimension style or a multi-leader style. This will change the scale for your text. If you want to change how big a lot of the text objects are, this will set the current height for your text. And if you click this button here, this will get you to your text style manager. We'll go over text styles and how to set them up in a different section. Now, as I stated earlier, there are different ways to use text in multi-lines, and you need to let your styles control your font type. M-text objects can be edited within the text editor, but once you do, you lose some of these controls or abilities. For example, let's load in some text, and I'll show you a trick on how to load some text. So we're just going to start the M-text command. We're going to get our text editor, and then we're going to right-click. Go to Import Text. Browse to the folder that has your files in it. Go to this chapter's folders, and let's load in the note-pipe.txt file. Select that and click Open. Okay, now we have a lot of text in here. And that's a quick way to insert text into your drawing, especially if it's a set of notes that you're going to use over and over again. It has to be saved as a .txt file, whatever it is. So just remember that. Now that I have some text in here and I have a style set up for them, and it's using the standard style, if I open up Properties palette, I can confirm that. Yes, it's the standard style. So if I open up my style manager, and if I go to standard, I can change the font type to whatever I want. Click apply, click close, and that text object is updated. But if I double click the text to edit it, and let's say these first couple of lines, I select it, I'm going to go bold, italics. I'm just going to give you a big idea of what it's going to look like. We're going to make it very different. Actually, let's make it yellow. And I'd like to also change the font. So I'm going to select it. I'm going to go up here to the fonts, and I'm going to put this one back to a different Arial font. Okay, now that I'm finished, you can see these look very different. And I use the text style overrides within the text editor. Similar to how you would change a line's color or line type through the Properties panel, you can do that too here with the text, and that's fine. But now when I select this object here and I try to change it to a different style, I can't. Because of the overrides, it kind of breaks that style relationship that it has. So it's suggested that if you need to change the font of a text or the color, then manage those visual displays through the Properties Manager, Layers, and Text Styles. Make multiple text styles. They're very easy to make. Now, M-text can have a background mask applied to it. This will block out any line work that's behind the text. This allows the text to be seen more easily over line work. So if I have a series of lines, and you want them to be blocked out so that your text sort of sits on top of it and you can't see it, that's easy enough to do. Select your text, go to the Properties palette and scroll down till you find Background Mask. Right now it's turned on to No. Select it and click this box and pick on the Use Background Mask. Now we want this to be at least 100% of the coverage of it. I typically go with a 1.1, so it gets out just past the edge of the text. So there's a little blank spot around it, just in case. Now instead of picking a color, choose the Use Drawing Background Color. Click OK. Press Escape. And your text has to be on top of your line work. So you can select it, type in DR for Draw Order, press F for Front, and your text will be on top of that, and your line work is still there, as you can see, but it's just being blocked out so that you can read the text more easily. So that's a nice little trick. Also, when you're in the text editor, editing your text, if you right-click, you get access to a lot of different options. Many of them are available up here in the ribbon. You can get to Select All, Cut and Paste and Copy, Paste Special, Insert a Field, get access to a lot of different symbols, the Import Text option, as I showed you earlier, alignments, bullet lists, set up columns, find and replace, change case, which is very nice, all caps, which will change everything to all caps if that's the way you have to type, autocorrect caps lock on, different character sets, your background mask, your editor settings, help, and just cancel. So you can see you can get to a lot of different tools and a lot of different ways that make multi-line text inside AutoCAD almost like a word processor. If you need to hide line work in your drawing, there is a form of annotation that you can use called Wipeout. Now the Wipeout command creates a wipeout object. This type of object hides what's behind it. Let's start with just a simple rectangle and a circle. Doesn't matter what size they are or anything, that's fine. If you go to the Annotate tab in the ribbon and go to the Markup panel, you'll find Wipeout. Or you can just type in Wipeout on the command line. A wipeout will create a shape, and everything behind that shape will be blocked out. So when you see, it was very easy to use. You start the command, and you have three different options. You have frames, polyline, or you actually pick your first point. So if you pick your first point, then you can start creating your wipeout shape. Now it has to have a minimum of 3 points, but you can use as many as you need. You can see the wipeout is even blocking out the grid from behind. So to create your wipeout, you just start picking points. When you're finished, press Enter, and that will create your polygonal shape that defines the wipeout area. Now, if you have a closed polyline, you can convert it to a wipeout frame. So if I have a polyline that's closed, I can go to Wipeout, type P on the command line, and then select. You can erase the polyline or keep it there. And that is another way to create a wipeout. Now that we have our wipeouts, note that these lines are frames, and these frames are going to show whenever you print. So keep that in mind. If you start the command again, wipeout, and this time type in F for frames, press Enter, you can turn them on, which is the default. You can turn them off, which means you won't see the frames, but you can tell where the wipeout is because everything's wiped out. Or you can say display but not print. So you have those options. Typically, you're going to want to display them but not print them, because when they are turned off, they're here, but it makes them difficult to find and work with. I mean, you can still grip edit them just like you would any other object, but if your grid is turned off, for example, it's kind of hard to see where it is. Now, when you pan or zoom, the wipeouts kind of go away. So that's one way to loosely or quickly check for wipeouts. But you can select them and manipulate them or even delete them. But I suggest that you work with wipeouts with the frames on, but not plopped. Now, wipeouts are great for hiding things, but be careful when using them. If you turn the frames off, you can forget that they're there. Or if they're off and another user gets a hold of your file and has to work in it, they won't have any idea that a wipeout is there. I've had that happen before, and it's very frustrating. It can cause a lot of confusion. So I suggest also that you create a special layer called Wipeout for your wipeouts. You can call it whatever you want, and then select that to no print. That will also keep that from happening. Just leave the wipeout frames on, but that they won't print. Use that setting. That way, if your layer gets turned off or on, it won't make a difference for that. And it makes them easier to manage that way. But these can be very useful when you're revising drawings, working with old drawings, or have something you just can't turn off without making a major change, or you need to hide. Styles control everything in AutoCAD. Text styles are no different. They are actually very simple to create and edit, and probably one of the easiest styles in AutoCAD to use. Now, you can just open up any regular blank template file, or if you have another file already open, that's fine. To get to text styles, you just type in the word style and press enter. These are all of the settings you have available for your text style. As you can see, they all fit on one window. They're not very much. Over here on the left in this top are all of the styles that are in your file. And down here is a preview of what that selected style is going to look like. With this option here, you can see all of the styles in the file, or you can opt to see just the styles that are being used. It's up to you on what you need to do. Now again, there's only one window for text styles. Now to edit a style, you just select the text style that you want to edit, and you come over here and you make a change. You have the font type, and if you see these two T's together, that means it's a true type font. You see this little one, it looks like a compass with an A at the top right-hand corner. That's an Autodesk or an AutoCAD font. And there are a lot to choose from. Here you can change the font style. Some of them will have more than one option. There will be a regular or a bold or an italicized, etc. If I look here, I only have that one option. But there are a lot of different things that you can do with your text. Here you have the size. Now you can pick it to be annotative. This text right here called annotative is annotative. If an object is annotative, you set the height in the paper. That means when it prints out, it's going to be, however it's going to be. I'm going to say it's going to be 0.1 units. And this is in units in your file. So keep that in mind. If you're working in decimals of a foot, text size of 0.1 is very common, or oftentimes it'll go down to about 0.08 for regular text. So in this case, it's about 1/10 of an inch. That'll give you an idea of what it looks like. What this will do is that it will match it. If your text is in model space and you create a viewport, regardless of the scale of your viewport or the scale of your drawing, the text height will always be the same. It will adjust it automatically so that it looks the same on paper all of the time. Or you can just set the height. You say, I'm going to have this text be 0.1 or 0.5 or 20 or 100, whatever it needs to be. You can make your text upside down and backwards, or just one or the other. And you have an obliquing angle. This gives it a bit of an italics look to it. And you have the width factor. Now the width factor is the width of the characters. So the standard width factor of 1 will make the text just look like it's supposed to. If it's less than 1, it'll scrunch them together. If it's greater than 1, it makes them fatter or wider. It keeps the height the same. The height won't change, just the width. Now to create a new text style, you have to start by highlighting over one of these. And anytime you change the text, it's going to ask you if you want to save your changes. So you click yes or no. In order to create a new text style, select one of these text objects, find the one that fits best to what you're going to create, and then click new. Give it a name. I'm just going to call it new for this example. Click OK, and then make your changes accordingly. So this one has bold, italics, and regular. Not bold and italics, just either bold or italics. So this is a case where you may want to go bold and set your oblique angle to 30 to get it that way. I can make it even a little bit fatter like that. When you're finished, click apply, select the text, select the set current, and whenever you start new text, this will be the style that's used. Now text styles, as with all styles, are saved in that specific AutoCAD file. They're not saved on your computer, on a network, or anywhere else that you can get to them. So you can create a style that you want to use in other drawings, and if you're going to do that, you must import that style. I recommend that you create a standard set of text styles in a template file somewhere and start all of your drawings from that template file. Now, if you copy and then paste the text in from one file to another or insert text into a drawing, that text object style is not in the drawing, then the style will come with it. So that's one way to import your text styles into another file. However, if it is found, let's say we have a style called standard, which most CAD files do. So if I change this standard to anything else, doesn't matter what it might be, if I change that and then I AutoCAD has tables. Tables here can be generated very quickly. Now, they create a spreadsheet-like grids of lines, columns, rows, and text, very similar to a spreadsheet. Now, tables have styles too. But first, let's just take a quick look at them. And let's start by using a blank template file. Any template file should be fine. Now, to start or to create a table, you can go to two places. You can go to the Home tab, to the Annotation panel, and just click on the Table button right here. Or you can go to the Annotate tab in the ribbon and go to the Tables panel. Or you can just type in the word table. Now, this window here comes up when you first start your table command. This is where you define the attributes of your table. Now, you need to define the number of rows and columns, their height and their width. And let's just say I'm going to type in 4. Now, it doesn't give you an accurate preview of what your table is going to look like when you define it here. I wish it did, but it doesn't. Now, you can start from a blank table, or you can start from a data link from a spreadsheet. You can link in your data from an Excel spreadsheet and put it directly into AutoCAD and have them linked together. When you edit one, the other is also updated. And that's really cool and very advanced and extremely useful. But right now, I just want to show you how to start a table and how to create it. You pick your table style, just like you would with a dimension, multi-leader, or text. You can click here to launch a table style dialog. This is one way to create a brand new style. Now, a style will have things defined in it, like headers and the text that goes in them. So once we've defined a few things like rows and columns, click OK, and then insert. And then you just start typing it in. And it works just like it would in a spreadsheet. So if you're familiar with working with a spreadsheet, you'll find tables very similar and very easy and simple to use. Now, they're nowhere near as powerful as a regular spreadsheet program is, of course not, but gives you something that automatically grids your work, and it gives you different options similar to working in a spreadsheet. So for example, if I have numbers in here, number 1, I press enter, it goes down to the next one, 2, let's say 55, and then 17. When you're done editing the cells, just click anywhere else inside your drawing area. Now, to select your table, you just pick any part of it, and you can have access to that there. So if I want to change this to, let's say, 34, I just start typing it in. Now I can select the cell, and if I double click in it, it gets me into like a text editor similar to the multi-line text where I can work with this text. I can match properties, bold, underline, justification, etc. Now, if I select this cell right here, I can go to data format and I can change some of the format, text, date, currency, etc. Now I can also go to formula. So I can click on sum, and then I just pick with a selection window, the cells that I want to sum. Looks just like a spreadsheet. Press enter, and there I have a sum. Now it puts a little gray box behind it. That just tells you it's a special field. That gray box won't print. That just lets you know that this is an automated feature, and if I change one of these values now from 1, make it very obvious, to 200, that's going to automatically update. So that's a really great feature to have right inside your AutoCAD file. You can manipulate your table with grips. So you can see here, you have a left, right, and some other tops and bottoms. Now the left and rights kind of act like stretches, and so does the up and down. If you click on the top of a column, you can stretch those different column widths. If I select this top box here, I pick everything, and then I can change the overall width or height. If I click here, it will automatically fill the cell, and that can get you into trouble sometimes, but a quick undo will set things back. So you can do things like that. If I pick a cell and I right click, I get a lot of my different options right here. I can change my cell style. I can change it to a data, a header, or a title. I can even save it as a new style if I'd like. I can set a background fill. And I can also do these things by selecting multiple cells at a time. Just hold on your Shift key and click where you want. Right click. You can change the borders. You can put in a double line, go all the way around. You can do that. You can right click again. You can change the background fill to something else. As you can see, that's very hard to see. You can change it to black. You can also change my alignments. So there are a lot of different things that you can do with a table. If you need to add or delete rows, just select a row, right click, say delete row, or insert row below or above, and it adds it right to it, or it will take one away. Same way with columns. You can insert a column to the right or to the left, and so on. Now, if I pick two cells, I can merge them together. I can merge them all by row, whatever it is I want to do. The hatch command will draw a filled in or enclosed area or selected objects with a hatch pattern, a solid fill, or a gradient fill. Let's take a look at the hatch example CAD file. Now here we have some shapes with a lot of different closed areas, a hatch pattern already created, and a simple rectangle and circle. Now to start the hatch command, you can get to it several different ways. Type in the word hatch, type in the letter H, go to the Home tab on the ribbon, and come up to the hatch command right here. Now you'll see here there's a little arrow. And we have three different types of hatches. We have hatch, gradient, and then we have a boundary. Now the boundary doesn't create a hatch, it just creates a boundary that's very similar to a hatch boundary. And they're created almost identical. So that's why it's grouped here. If you click the hatch command, this will give you a contextual ribbon tab. This is the hatch creation ribbon tab. Here you can pick your different patterns. You can see them on the screen here. You can scroll through them. If you click that arrow here, that shows you everything that's available to you. You get to some of your gradient fills and other patterns. Some of these are AutoCAD or ISO standards. Others are typical drafting standard type hatch patterns that show material, etc. And you also have a solid fill pattern here as well. So you pick your pattern and you can define what area gets hatched in one of two ways. One, you just pick your points and it looks for a boundary and it fills everything inside that boundary. As you move your cursor over one of these areas, it will give you a preview of what's going to be hatched and what it's going to look like. Or you can use the select option and select the entire rectangle. And you see here, it automatically created this with island detection because I started it and went back to it and continued with it, and it thought I was giving it multiple options. So if I press escape, select the hatch, right click, and erase that, I'll show you how it's going to look. Start the hatch command. Start with the select option and pick the rectangle. It will ignore the lines inside there. Otherwise, if you use the pick points, it has what's called island detection. So it's sort of dropping in a drop of water and it just flows around until it finds a border and then it stops. Now hatches are cool because I can edit them in a lot of different ways. I can trim them, start the trim command, select the cutting edge that you're going to use, press enter, and then select the part of the hatch that you want to go away. That's really cool. Also, if I select the hatch, I can move them like so. And you can see here I have grips that I can also change the boundaries just like I would with a polyline. So I have a lot of different options. If I select a hatch object, the contextual ribbon tab of the hatch editor will come up. It looks almost identical to the hatch creation. Here I can change my patterns. You can even change it here as well to a solid, a gradient, or a user-defined. I can change my colors. I can change a background color. I can change the angle. I have the slider bar, or I can just type in the angle here. I can make the hatch a little transparent, and I can change the scale. When you're done, press escape. If you press enter, you're going to get that little menu bar, and just press escape. So you can see here, you can make your hatch patterns look really quite cool. Now if I select this here, and I change it from a pattern, and I go to a solid, it will retain some of these other settings, but then I can just change the color to whatever it is I want it to be. And again, the sides and everything just edit the exact same way. If I switch it to a gradient fill, I have these different options here. And I can change the color of my gradient. I can change the different styles of gradients. And there's a lot that I can do with that. I can change the origin. And I can use a match properties. If I choose the match properties option, find another hatch pattern, select it, my new hatch pattern that I'm creating or editing will match the exact same properties of that hatch object itself. So if I go with the hatch command and I pick select, I can select an entire border like that, or I can select a defined shape of items. Now it's going to give you some trouble if those shapes don't break and cut exactly to themselves, as you can see here. So now that I have those lines, and I start my hatch command, I can pick these very specific lines and hatch just that object or item that way. So how a hatch object is created, it depends on what you select, or if you just pick an internal point. Look out for island detection, that sort of thing. So hatches are really cool. They can really enhance your drawing visually, and there's a lot that you can do with them to edit them and to make them just amazing. Annotations will make or break your drawing, especially when construction is involved. Many people that you make drawings for do not know how to create them, and they really don't even know how to read them. That may sound surprising, but you're going to find out that it is often the case. In this chapter project, we're going to set up the dimension styles and text styles for our final project. We're going to start by opening up the chapter template file that we created for the layering chapter. We've already created some of these layers, so we're going to add to that main file. So go to Open Files, browse to that folder, look for the project template file, open it up. Now I'm going to do a save as because I don't want to override that file. And I'm going to override this file that I had started just to make sure I had everything going correctly. And this will give you a fresh start, or the same start that I have when we start our drawing. If you open up the layer manager, you'll see that we have a bunch of layers in here, many of them which we had created ourselves or changed. Now what we need to do is to make 3 text styles. So type in the word style. We're going to make 3 of them, a notes, a header, and a title. So click on the new button, name this one notes, click OK. Now let's just go ahead and use the Arial font, that's fine, regular, and we're going to set the text height of 1/8 of an inch. Let's leave everything else the same, click apply. Now let's make another new one, call this one header, H-E-A-D-E-R. Again, we'll use the Arial font. I often use the Arial font in AutoCAD because it's very thick, it's blocky, makes it easy to read, and being able to read easily your drawings is a must. A lot of times these drawings are in a machine shop or they're out in the field on a construction site. They get dirty, they get folded, they get ripped, and the easier the text is to read, the better. We're not looking to make beautiful works of art here. We're looking to make a tool, a guide to create something. And so a lot of times the creation process gets dirty and messy, and so will your drawings. So I like the Arial font because of its simplicity and its blockiness to it. It makes it easy to see. Okay, so for this header, we're going to make it a little bit bigger in size. We're going to go 3/16, and I want it to be bold, title-like headline for some of our notes. Click Apply, and we're going to make one more. So click on the New button, and let's call this one Title. Again, Arial and bold, and yet bigger still in size, a full 1/4 inch. Click Apply, and then click Close. So text styles are very easy to make. Now let's make a dimension style suitable for an architectural drawing. Let's go to the Annotate tab, go to our dimensions, click on the little flyout button here to get to our styles. Now there's only one in here. We're going to make a new one. It's a copy of the standard, but we're going to call it Arch Project. Click Continue. Okay, we're going to do just a few things here. We're going to go to the Lines tab. We're going to make everything by layer. Same way with the colors of everything else down here, and the line type extensions, and the thickness. Now we're going to change this Extend Beyond Dimension Lines to 0. And that's all we're going to do in this tab. If we go to the Symbols and Arrows tab, make sure these are set to Architectural Tick. That's what I want to use. Everything else on their standard should be fine. Now go to Text. On the text style, we're going to pick one of the new text styles that we created called Notes. That way it'll match our font and our height the way we want. And I'm going to make the text color by layer. And that's it. Click OK. Click Close, and then make sure you save your drawing. That's it. Just a few tweaks to that dimension style, nothing crazy, and just a few text styles that we set up. Let's make sure that this Arc project is our current dimension style. And let's make sure our notes are the current text style. Okay, now save your file. Every time you go to start a drawing, you'll have dimension styles, text styles, and layers already set up to make a good looking architectural drawing.